Okay, so here we are at the first video. In this video, we're going to be talking about how do we actually create Google Forms, and then how do we use that to track attendance and to actually turn those into quizzes as well. So basically in this video, I'm going to show you where do we go to find a Google Forms, how do we create it, a couple of the key tricks of turning it into a quiz, and some of those key tricks of, hey, whenever you're tracking attendance, you really want this to not be checked. So let's dive in. So here I am in a folder that I created. It's called Creating QR Codes Attendance/Quizzes. And in that introduction video that that you just watched, you see that practice attendance and that practice quiz. That's where what I was creating or what I was using. So if we double click on one and bring it up, this is kind of what it looks from my end whenever I was creating it. It just has that name, and that was that one that says first and last name. Then we had this practice quiz. So this practice quiz, of course, that was that practice quiz that I showed you in the video. First name, last name, our first question, and then our second question. So let's actually create a brand new one. Now, whenever I create these Google quizzes or Google Forms, first you're going to go to New, down here where it says More, and create Google Forms. So that's the first thing that I'm going to do whenever I'm creating these. And it's going to bring it up. Now, the way that I like to title mine is I actually call them daily questions. Or for me, I would call them daily questions. So you could put I put DQ and then the date. So for this one, let's just say we're tracking attendance. So I'm going to say attendance, and then I'm going to put the date in there. So 8-28. And then I'm going to click right here to bring in my name. And if you type it in up here first, it automatically updates the name up here. So then what are the questions that I'm going to want to ask in this attendance? For this particular example, all I want to do is track attendance. I'm not going to turn this one into a quiz. I'm not going to make it for a grade, anything like that. I just want them to scan it, type their name into where I have a record of attendance. So really all I need is their name. Now I would encourage you to do first name and then last name. And the reason why is it'll put them in two separate columns in Google Sheets. So we're going to wind up linking this to Google Sheets in the next video. And whenever we link it to Google Sheets, it's going to bring in that first name and the last name, where last name is now in a column. So that way you can actually sort by their last name in that Google Sheets, and then everything is in alphabetical order by their last name. So I would encourage you to actually put first name and last name in there. Now, if you wanted to make sure that they put their last name, you can make this required, as well as this one is required, to where now when they go to take that quiz, it is required that they answer both of those. So that's basically how you make an attendance deal, but there's a couple of things I need to bring to your attention. First, we're going to go up here into the settings. And you could say collect email addresses, but that's going to require them to be logged into their Casper College email. And in my experience, whenever they are logged into their Casper College email, things kind of go haywire. And same thing right here. So what I'm going to do is, if I was going to be just tracking attendance, under this general, I'm going to make sure that it's basically all unchecked. And that way it's good to go. Especially these two, because these two are going to require them to sign in, and you really don't want that. At least for me, I don't want that. Because it winds up causing more complications. So then I click Save. And now this is ready to go. So this Google Forms is ready to go to be tracking attendance. So I'm going to create another Google Forms, and I'm going to call this Daily Questions. So this is, in my class, I actually pose 3 multiple choice or true-false questions. And I create my questions based off of what I talked about in the previous lecture. So whenever they walk in, they scan their QR code, and then they have 3 questions of what we talked about. It's a refresher, and it allows them to basically see what we talked about, and it's a good introduction into the class. Furthermore, whenever I go to make my tests, I make my tests based off these daily questions. So I've already got a question bank that I am developing over that whole time, and that was basically my review questions this whole time. So I'm going to go ahead in here, and I'm going to title this one Daily Questions, or DQ, and I'm going to title it the date. So today, whenever I'm making these videos, it's September 28th. So I'm just going to call it the date, and I just type in DQ, and I've got my date. Now, on these, on your daily questions, you still want them to type in their first name and their last name. And then I'm going to go ahead and make my questions. So my first question may be 2 plus 2 equals, and I'm going to call this a multiple choice. I'm going to say 3, 4, and 5. Or, sorry, 2, 3, and 4. So that way I've got my correct answer in there. Now I'm going to go ahead and make another question. And I am going to say, which of the following is not studied under macroeconomics? Then I'm going to say inflation, GDP, and price of milk at the local store. So I've got my questions here. They're all set up. Now I need to turn it into an actual quiz. So everything's ready to go here. And the way that I turn it into a quiz is I go up here to the settings. So I'll click on settings. First and foremost, I'm going to uncheck this restrict to Casper College users and make that available to everybody. Then I'm going to come over here to quizzes. I'm going to say make this a quiz. Then it has other options. I don't really worry about this locked mode in Chromebooks because I want them to be able to access it off their phones. Release grade immediately after submission. I want them to see the missed questions, correct answers, and the point values. I click save. And then the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to come onto my individual questions that are going to be part of this quiz. So of course, first name and last name really aren't part of the quiz. So I come down here to this first question. I'll say answer key. I'll assign it 1 point, 5 points, however much I want. And I'll select the correct answer and say done. Down here, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to click on that question, say answer key, assign points, collect the right answer, and say done. And it says up here that it's now worth 2 points. This quiz is now worth 2 points. These questions are now worth 2 points. Essentially, that's how you make a quiz in Google Forms. So from here, in the next video, I'm going to show you how do we link these Google Forms to Google Sheets to where now we have it in a good, clear, concise manner of keeping track of our attendance in one area.